we have in studio with us now the Israeli ambassador, Jacob Keidar, to talk about the situation. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. This dates back to the 60s. I mean, it's been a long struggle, and going into the details of it will be difficult in a short time. But the question in particular, as Kenya is asking, Kenyans would ask now, especially considering what we went through last year, what is the way forward? How can we find peaceful resolution to this issue? Right.
It goes back actually about 8 years ago. And since then, the Hamas has been launching rockets on Israeli cities and villages around Gaza. And especially in the last few months, when we tried to have a ceasefire with the Hamas.
Mr. Ambassador, I want to stop you there, because even both sides of the story, it's one thing after another, and we understand there was a ceasefire, but we are where we are now. And the reason why I'm stopping you is we have over 800 people dead. The number of women and children is put right now at 333. Over 300 are possibly completely innocent people. So even though, yes, there have been problems in the past, and we may say Hamas has been responsible, or it was an Israeli offensive, whatever anybody says, because each side has its perspective. What is the way forward, Mr. Ambassador?
In our eyes, the way forward is quite simple. If the Hamas stops launching rockets, which, for example, today they launch about 20, even during a ceasefire we had at noontime, we tried to bring in humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and we declared a 3-hour ceasefire. They continued launching rockets. If they stop, and if they cease rearming themselves by new rockets and new ammunitions, then there is no need for our offensive.
Right.
If they stop shooting from among densely populated areas, there is no need for our offensive.
Violence, Mr. Ambassador, begets violence. Do you agree with this, or?
There is a vicious circle. Of course,
so
I agree.
Where does it stop then? Because somebody must be able to raise themselves above and say, we will take the moral high ground. Who does it? And I ask as a Kenyan, in view of the fact that our own people here in Kenya have died because of a crisis that is not of our making. So we have suffered the brunt. We know what it is to suffer the brunt. But at this point, seriously, the world seems to be asking, how much longer can this continue?
We have tried everything. We have tried in peaceful ways, in a ceasefire, in withdrawing from Gaza, in an offensive in the past as well. We have tried everything to stop them. And we are really puzzled. What should we do? And I think that the only way forward is to make the Hamas stop, first of all by force. I think they will understand eventually. And then, if they can join the more moderate part of the Palestinians and sit down at the negotiation table with us and negotiate a lasting peaceful agreement with Israel, this will be the solution. But they refuse to do that. The Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, is quoted as saying it's time to take achievements and turn them into goals and prepare for phase 3. Mr. Ambassador, what is phase 3? Phase 3 is bringing in the Israeli reserve forces and go really from house to house and try to clean out all the Hamas rocket launchers, ammunition, arms, and just stop them from launching rockets.
So the world is going to see this just become more intense?
I hope not. I really hope not, because on Friday the Security Council called for a ceasefire. At the same day, the Hamas intensified their rocket attacks.
Yes.
And we hope that by now, we are now on Sunday, and the Israeli offensive continues. We hope that the Hamas will get the sense and become logic and stop whatever they are doing, and there is no reason then for us to continue.
If Hamas was sitting here, they would argue a very logical position of why they feel the need to do what they're doing. So without pointing fingers and saying they are to blame, we are to blame, the whole world has been brought into this. And you've seen the demonstrations. You've seen almost a mood saying, this is too much to bear, watching these children being brought out of houses, mutilated bodies. And how do you justify, Mr. Ambassador, at what point do you say it is worth it to do this? And this is the route of forcing Hamas to stop is the route that's going to work. And just to add that human nature, time immemorial has shown that you can beat people down, but if they're determined, they'll keep getting back up.
We know that. We know that, and I'm puzzled a little bit by those who protest and demonstrate. I haven't seen them for 8 years protesting and demonstrating against the Hamas when they shot rockets on Israel. And we are acting on self-defense. And of course, again, it's a vicious circle of violence. And people suffer on both sides. And especially you see the civilian population in Gaza suffering terribly, terribly.
Yes.
And it breaks personally, it breaks my heart to see those kind of things. And I really hope that the Hamas will stop launching rockets and we can stop this operation. Because we have to protect our citizens. And how do we do that? And we don't target the civilian population, we target the Hamas.
Then let me ask this question. If you don't target the civilian population, in the past 3 years, even during the period when there was a ceasefire, and now over the past few weeks, how many Israelis dead? How many Palestinians dead?
In the last 2 weeks, we know exactly. You said the numbers.
Now I'm taking it further. I'm taking it further because
before that it was not like that. Of course not.
Yes.
There was no Israeli offensive on this scale.
But you said that Hamas has been launching. How many people did Hamas kill?
Quite a few, but not at the same numbers.
There we go. I'm just
saying
the human loss.
The reason is simple. First of all, we have bomb shelters.
Right.
We protect our people.
Right.
And just imagine, I will take Mombasa, just for to give an example. If Mombasa would have been rocketed day in and day out for 8 years, not many people die, but several die here and there. Many get wounded, many houses ruined. You will say, look, this is not really serious. We should not do anything. And let it continue. Of course it's not true. We have to stop it.
Do you believe that, and this is the final question for you, do you believe this crisis will be resolved through dialogue and the will to find peace, or through force and through destruction? What do you personally believe?
I can tell you almost 100%. My own belief that it will end with a kind of dialogue, with a kind of political solution, brokered by Egypt, by France, by the Security Council, by the Americans, but it will end with a political solution.
Okay, so we need to see the international community also come in to help.
They're doing that. They're doing that right now.
It just doesn't seem to be getting far enough, quick enough.
It takes time.
Thank you very much for joining us, for your perspective. Now, we are also, after the break, going to be speaking to Hassan Omar. Hassan, he is, of course, the Deputy Chairman of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. He's also a Kenyan